Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Micromanagement often starts out as maybe good intentions or aiming for high standards, but often results in low trust. Micromanagement is what happens when those in charge of teams, those in management, do not allow people to complete their tasks without overmanaging them, without hovering, without checking up on them constantly, or at least quite frequently. Things like overchecking or requiring that the manager's approval be given for any and all decisions or most decisions, redoing employees' work once they completed, and creating approval bottlenecks. Those are just some things that are associated with micromanagement. We ask ourselves, why does micromanagement even happen? It seems to be something that requires a lot more time and energy than what is really necessary. All too often, micromanagement happens because there is a certain level of anxiety on the part of the manager, whether that anxiety is about their own lack of management and leadership skills, or the anxiety is related to their team and the team's abilities and skill sets. Whatever the case may be, micromanagement often happens because there is an exaggerated or an elevated level of anxiety on the part of the manager or the team leader. The manager may not be able to adequately convey to his or her team what it is that he or she needs from them. And it is this lack of proper and effective communication that may lead to a perceived need to oversee and micromanage absolutely every move of each team member. Some individuals micromanage because they have a need to absolutely control every aspect of everything that's going on around them. Some micromanage because they label themselves or fancy themselves as perfectionists, and only their way is the right way or the acceptable way of accomplishing tasks and goals. And some will micromanage because they fear having to be held accountable for any errors or mistakes that may happen within their team. Whatever the case may be, micromanagement is largely linked to shortcomings on the part of the person in charge. And while sometimes the manager may feel the need to micromanage because of lacking skills and abilities of his or her team, in reality, when this is the case, such a manager should either invest in proper training and proper tools and resources for the team members, or replace any team member that is not able to do the job. What happens when micromanagement is part of an individual's daily experience at the workplace? The most obvious effect is a reduced sense of autonomy. Individual employees do not have the autonomy, the permission, the ability to make their own decisions about the work that they're doing. This may lead to learned helplessness on the part of the employees if their work is going to be micromanaged or changed or fixed by the manager. The employees may choose to do substandard work and not even put any effort into what they're doing. The reasoning is that there's no point to doing your best because it's not going to be enough. It will always be criticized and corrected or revised by the manager. This can lead to disengagement on the part of individual employees, but also may increase turnover, whether that's actual turnover or intended turnover within the team. It's easy to understand why micromanagement is detrimental to the team as a whole and to each individual employee. Regardless of how tight the manager wants to hold on to the team and the control over the team, micromanagement will backfire sooner or later, and most likely sooner. When it comes to micromanagement and teams, results may become slower and stifled. Cycles may be prolonged and delayed, and results will be sacrificed, and deadlines or goals may not be met. There may be an increase in hidden errors. People will not feel comfortable or safe enough to admit to having made mistakes. Also, when a leader insists on reviewing and correcting everyone's work, he or she is likely to miss something simply because of this volume of added responsibilities. And of course, micromanagement will affect psychological ownership. Those who feel that their manager is engaging in micromanagement behavior are much less likely to feel both psychologically safe and to have a sense of psychological ownership. So, how do we fix micromanagement? Well, first of all, the vast majority of work has to be done by those in leadership or management positions. If you are guilty of micromanaging your employees, you have to put in the work to change your ways. The first thing to consider is that you have to be clear with your employees as to what it is that you want from them in terms of outcomes. Once that is understood, make sure that people know when they have achieved whatever they were supposed to do. How do you define when a task is completed, when the work they started is done? This has to be very clear for both you as a leader and for your team. Trust that your employees have the abilities to do their job. Make sure that they have the tools and resources that they need and let them do their jobs. You can still check in on people, but you have to do it in a much less frequent way. This brings me to the next point. Set a check-in cadence, one that is reasonable, not overwhelming or overbearing. You should not be constantly monitoring everything everyone does. At the same time, encourage your team to come to you with questions, whether that means needing clarity or resources, whatever the case may be. Welcome their inquiries and provide the right feedback and answers in a way that empowers them. Start delegating decisions. This is one way of letting go of some of that control that you may be holding on to so tightly. Create a decision rights ladder and implement it within your team. Make it clear who is allowed to make what decisions and then step back. Once again, make it clear that employees are encouraged to come to you with questions, whether they need clarification or resources. But beyond that, let people make the decisions that they are capable of making. Stop looking for proof that people are working. Instead, look for evidence of progress. When you check in, You can ask for progress. At the same time, you can ask to see if your employees need anything from you in terms of resources, tools, or clarification. Although this may sound scary for those who are used to micromanaging, this will truly free up a lot of your time and energy and allow you to focus on more productive things during your day. If you're a micromanager, this will likely not be a simple task for you. It's something that you will have to practice and get better at it as time goes. But you must trust that your micromanagement is detrimental to your team and their productivity, not to mention to the morale of your employees. As an individual employee, you have some responsibility with this as well. It's up to you to communicate openly with your manager, to ask for clarification, for tools, for whatever resources you may need to do your job. Beyond that, you can approach your manager in a non-confrontational way to advise what your plan is when it comes to completing your tasks, your assignments, your projects. Be clear. Provide defined points of what you're planning to do and how you're planning to do it. Get clarification from your manager. What does a properly completed project look like to him or her, so that both of you are on the same page when you set out to complete a task? And be very clear in asking, what decisions are you allowed to make as you move forward? These could be decisions related to one specific project or generally in terms of your position within the company. Open communications that are not confrontational or threatening will be much more productive than guessing or taking on a more aggressive approach. A good way to start making changes in an environment where micromanagement has been part of the norm is to start with a 2-week pilot program where you as a manager make it very clear as to what it is that you expect from your employees, advise what decision-making rights they have, and let them do their jobs. Check in as appropriate, but do not constantly monitor your employees. Let them do their jobs. Encourage them to ask questions and seek out support or resources from you as needed. Watch your check-in cadence and make it purposeful rather than bothersome. Review how it went after 2 weeks. Make any changes that are necessary to improve on what you're doing and move forward. Remember, micromanagement is incredibly detrimental to the experience of your entire team. It has no place in a healthy workplace. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Micromanagement, more often than not, is the result of the doubts or shortcomings of those in charge. And although sometimes it can be related to teams or individuals that lack proper skills, this can often be resolved with proper training and resources. Lasting micromanagement is much more likely the issue that is rooted in the manager himself or herself. Managers must resolve to change this behavior as it comes with detrimental results. Perfectionism, constant monitoring, and other characteristics associated with micromanagement tend to lead to low trust, disengagement, learned helplessness, and even increased turnover. As a manager, it's critical that you are clear with your team in terms of what it is that you want them to do, what you want from them. Give them the proper tools and resources, answer any questions, and let them do their jobs. Delegate decision-making to people on your team. and utilize a decision-making ladder to make it clear of what decisions belong to whom. As an employee, you also have the responsibility of seeking clarity and resources, as well as understanding what your manager is expecting from you and what decision-making rights you have. Be clear with your plan of how you intend to complete a task or project. This is the time to make any revisions if what you understand to be the goal does not match with what your manager wants from you. Micromanagement is detrimental to everyone on the team and has both short and long-term effects. It is in everyone's best interest to correct this form of management as soon as possible. As the week unfolds, I encourage you to consider micromanagement in your own experience. Are you someone who is on the receiving end of micromanagement, or perhaps someone who micromanages others? In some cases, you may be both. Considering how detrimental micromanagement is to an organization, it's important that you consider what was discussed in this episode and take the first steps to addressing micromanagement. This form of management can be incredibly damaging to not only the employee experience, but also to the organization as a whole. The time to start working towards change is today. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out Stress Free with Dr. G on YouTube. There you can find the video version of this podcast. While you're there, check out some of the other videos. They focus on stress management. Stress Free with Dr. G is available on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.